Hello, and welcome to Insurance Answers 101, where we address common insurance questions with easy to understand answers. Today, I'm going to cover a topic that gets discussed quite a bit, but that sometimes people can still be a little confused about. That is, how does insurance work when someone else drives your car? Well, the number one thing to keep in mind is that insurance follows the vehicle. That means whatever policy that the vehicle in question is listed under is the policy that's going to cover any accident or claim that that vehicle is involved in. Okay, for example, let's say you let your neighbor or coworker borrow your car. Maybe their car is currently in the shop or they just don't have access to it and they need to go pick up their kids from school or maybe run to the grocery store or maybe you were out for a night out on the town, maybe you had a few too many drinks, you're going to have a friend drive you home in your car. Whatever the scenario is, if you're letting someone borrow your car, we'll refer to them as the borrower. We'll refer to you as the owner. Well, if the borrower is driving your car and an accident were to occur, then it is going to be you as the owner. Your insurance will cover the claim that is involved with that incident. Regardless of whether the borrower has their own insurance or not, even if they have no insurance, as long as they have a valid driver's license and permission to drive your car, they'll be covered under you, the owner, your policy. If they have their own insurance, the only time their insurance will tend to get involved is if, let's say, maybe your coverage limits on your personal policy are maybe a little bit lower, say $50,000, and the accident that the borrower was involved in caused $60,000 in damage. Well, after your personal policy limit cuts off at $50,000, then the borrower's insurance will tend to kick in and cover that excess amount. So that is a bit of a plus side. Now, the downside to that is because it is you, the owner's personal policy, that's going to cover that claim, that means it is also you, the owner's personal policy, who's going to suffer the rate increase that's probably going to come up at the next renewal. So keep in mind, before letting someone borrow your car, if you know they have a poor driving history or tend to drive like a maniac, you might want to think twice before handing over your keys. Now, this next scenario can tend to be a little bit trickier, and even I can't give a 100% definitive answer on this because certain insurance companies sometimes have their own guidelines when it comes to this subject. And that is if the person you're letting borrow your car lives in the same household as you do. The best thing you can do when it comes to this subject is just make sure that all the licensed drivers in the household are acknowledged on your personal policy. There's two ways to go about doing this. One, you can just list them as an additional driver, which is really the best thing to do. This way, it eliminates all questions or doubts. You have all bases covered. If they were driving your car and something happened, there can be no debate. They're listed right there on the policy. Nothing to worry about. The other option is you can list them as an excluded driver. So let's say maybe you have a roommate who has their own car, their own insurance policy. It may even be through a completely different insurance company than who you have. They're completely independent on their own. If they were to drive your car and they were listed as an excluded driver on your policy, that means that your insurance will not cover any type of accident or claim that may occur. Uh, that will have to be handled by them and their insurance. So, the one thing to keep in mind is if there's any possible question when it comes to their insurance, let's say maybe they're a few days late on paying the bill and maybe their policy has lapsed. They may not even be aware of it. But if their policy is lapsed and they're driving your car and an accident were to occur, there's going to be no coverage whatsoever. And that is bad news and a problem you definitely want to avoid. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Uh, that should cover everything, though, when it comes to this. Keep in mind, each state sometimes does have their own rules, regulations, and laws when it comes to insurance. So your best bet is to always double check with your local agent to make sure that the information in this video is accurate and correct based on where you do live. However, this is pretty general information and is usually going to be the case 9 times out of 10. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you like what you saw here, feel free to like and subscribe. There will be future videos coming out with additional information and questions answered, so if you have anything you've been wanting to know, maybe you'll see that answered here in the near future. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.